He learned it from YouTube. Wow. Yeah, he learned it from YouTube. Here is my recap and review of the overall season of Titans Season 3. This final episode was called Purple Rain. And yeah, all I can say is I'm glad it's over. You can probably guess what kind of a rating out of 5 I'm going to give this here at the end. But man, there's an episode a scene in this episode where Crane actually says something's not right. And I started to laugh because, yeah, something's not right. This whole season was leading up to this finale, which was lackluster at best. A little more coherent than some of the other episodes, but still, there's a point in this episode where Tim Drake has to help his family. They're being kind of assailed by some cops. Lots of bullets flying, and this was ridiculous the way the bullets hit. You could totally tell it was CGI. It looked cartoonish, actually. And it was funny how they'd have like 10 officers firing at them, and they all happen to hit just this little part of the car or the armored vehicle that they were holding, and never happen to hit their legs or anybody standing off to the side. Like, it was the most ridiculous thing ever. But, at one point, Tim Drake comes out and sidekicks one of the cops, and everyone's like, whoa, where'd you learn to do that? He said, I learned it from YouTube. I can't tell you guys how ridiculous this whole season was. Yeah, that kind of sums up this whole thing. It looks like somebody from YouTube just wrote this whole thing. I don't know what to say. This whole episode revolves around the team coming together and finally taking down Crane. One of the interesting things you find out in this episode, though, is that there's this girl, V, who was working at the police department, and V ends up being someone who works for Argus. They actually went to Gotham because they were, in the show, they call it Ra's al Ghul. That is not how you say Ra's al Ghul, okay? The proper way to say his name is Ra's al Ghul, and I learned this years ago. The creator of the character, they came out and had this whole thing, and they admitted this for Batman the Animated Series, but they didn't think people would be able to pronounce it or would latch onto that. But the proper way to say that character's name is Ra's al Ghul, okay? And we never actually see him in this season, but apparently this Lazarus pit can be used more than once, and actually Ra's al Ghul can create the Lazarus pits. They end up trying to bring everybody who died back to life, and they send Rachel down there to kind of capture the essence and create a storm around Gotham to drop rain to bring back all the people who had been killed during this whole event back to life. And she ends up having issues, and it kind of consumes her. So Blackfire and Starfire have to come in and take over and kind of encapsulate it, take it outside, let it go. But then they noticed there's too much lightning, and there was like, one thing we forgot about storms is there's lightning. And then Donna Troy says, I'll take care of this. And she comes out with her lasso, throws it all the way up to the sky, and then becomes she becomes a conduit for the lightning, and he's able to dissipate it. I'm telling you, everything about this is just so freaking hokey. At the end of the episode, they do let Tim join, which is, again, ridiculous. He ends up punching out Crane in the episode, and it's so silly. It doesn't even look manly or tough at all. He just goes up and socks him, and that's it. They take him into custody. And at the end of the episode, Dick Grayson and Rachel do visit Crane in jail, and Rachel releases all of the bad juju, basically, from the Lazarus pit and passes it on to Crane to be able to, so he can go crazy and kind of have it consume him, all of the fear and stuff that he passed around. They decide also to they decide to go to San Francisco, and at the end of the episode, they drive off in an RV together for a 44-hour trip on their way to San Francisco. Blackfire does go back. You find out that Superboy actually, this power that they were using to try to bring her ship back to life and make it usable, he created it to destroy the ship because Superboy wanted her to stay there with him, which was selfish. Well, he has a mind. He basically has a photographic mind, so he's able to recreate the ship for her. And at the end of this episode, she goes home. And then Tim wasn't going to go with them, but does join them. and they all go off. So they're going to end up settling in San Francisco away from Gotham. Hopefully they lighten up the colors. There were too many blue filters on the season to make it look dreary. Hopefully we get a nice bright season and see these characters the way they should be seen. We'll see. I don't have high hopes for season 4, I will tell you that. Bruce Wayne does come back at the end of the season and tries to make amends with Jason. Jason kind of goes off on his own, so we'll be seeing Jason again, I'm sure. This was just terribly written. I've talked about this so many times in my recaps. This was terrible. This was terrible. It was so all over the place. I just don't know how they can't get writers in the room that can make something more coherent and something more cohesive and more fluid out of this show. There's no excuse for what they're doing. None whatsoever. So at the end of the day, I give this whole season a 1 out of 5 stars. I hope to never revisit this season again. It's ridiculous from top to bottom. I did not like Batgirl's role in this at all, Barbara's role. I don't like the girl who played her. She liked to say the F word a lot, and I'm sure that's the writers did that, but it just came off as cheesy. She really doesn't have a whole lot of acting ability. All the other characters were great in their roles, but she kind of stood out as someone who really couldn't act very well. So I don't know. We'll see where this goes when season 4 premieres, hopefully sometime next year, but hopefully they get better writers on it, different writers. Because like I said, the production values of this show are amazing. It's the writing that really lacks. And I don't know how these actors aren't standing up and saying something. But we'll see what happens in future seasons. But there's my overall recap on Titans Season 3. 1 out of 5 stars. This is my review and recap for the 13th episode of the season, which was called Purple Rain. All right, that's it for now. When Peacemaker starts, I will do recaps on those. But I'm not expecting much. I'm finding, I'm not a big Marvel fan, but I will tell you all of the Netflix shows that they had on were stellar compared to the crap we're getting with these DC shows. There's a big writing problem overall, which is inexcusable because the comics are amazing. But they've reduced these shows to just being childish. It's like fan fiction stuff. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes. We'll see you guys when Peacemaker starts. Take care.